Let me introduce to you our last panel. It is entitled Beyond the Passport, Rethinking Investment and Lifetime Value in Caribbean CBI, exploring how programs are evolving beyond transaction toward long-term economic impact. And chairing the discussion is Matthew Summer, founder and managing director of Outbound Investment Groups. He brings to this table over 15 years of experience in helping thousands navigate global mobility, tax optimization, and asset protection. I now invite you to take in the last panel for today and for our morning into afternoon session. Over to you.
Thank you to the moderator, the MC, sorry, and of course to CIS for allowing me to host this panel, and of course our host, Saint Lucia, CIP Saint Lucia in particular, McLeod and his team for inviting me down and having me chair this panel. So, just two brief words about my individual perspective on this. We operate a network of over 30,000 agents and intermediaries, and I've seen clients come from every single market on the planet, whether it's China, the Middle East, Americans, et cetera, who invest in citizenship by investment programs. And obviously there's a huge shift in what's happening, and the drivers coming from the EU and the US, I believe, is the impetus for a lot of what's being asked of these programs now. But we want to look beyond the passport on this panel and see and talk about ways in which we can engage the new citizens of these countries to have them play a larger role in the growth of the country and, as their new home, contribute beyond their initial investment into local economies. So I'd like to kick off the first question with...
Good afternoon. I was actually prompted by Matt that I'm going to kick off the panel. And usually that's not the case, but today he insisted. First of all, I think it requires us from moving CBI from just a transaction to more of a relationship. It needs to start, I would say, not necessarily at the beginning of the process, but at the end. If anyone knows the CBI process out there, unfortunately, as a local agent, we're not necessarily always in communication or direct communication with a client. Sometimes there are third parties involved. And certainly the citizenship units are not in communication directly with these clients. So it is actually very hard to build a relationship early. But I believe that we can transition to a relationship or a stronger relationship probably at approval. The best part is when we're able to give that package of belonging. I like to call it belonging. It's not just a passport. You now belong to a new country. And we have to understand that although a lot of investors think it's a passport, they don't have to come to these countries at the moment, other than Antigua, I think, who has had the 5-day stay right throughout, which benefited me, to be quite honest, where I got to meet my clients eventually, although I never met them maybe in the process. It allowed me that opportunity to engage them a bit more. And I believe what we can do is probably be a little bit more welcoming on that process. And I think the citizenship units could possibly get involved with that. I might be a little bit controversial when I say this, but I completely believe that we need to eliminate third-party passport delivery. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe the countries should deliver it through either an honorary consulate or an embassy or diplomats that they have within the regions. If we don't do that, we don't get, any communication with these clients other than that. And although we have seen some of these programs try to reach out to the diaspora, to me, sometimes that could be a bit late because we've not created a relationship out of them. And a relationship is very important. And how do you create a relationship? You warm someone up to you. And not just reaching out and telling them, come for a cocktail, because actually I mentioned to my fellow panelists yesterday that when you do that, and again, I'm going to be very controversial when I say this, it sometimes turns into a carnival because we like to bring that flair, and we're not necessarily always portraying the investment part of it at these events. However, I do encourage them. So I think in the early parts of it, and you guys can definitely expand on it, it starts at approval minimum, and we need to create that relationship. We need to move away from just the transaction.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, actually, I think because we want to move visitors to investors and then investors to advocates, I think the sooner the better in terms of the engagement, because a lot of times the destination, or let's just say in my case the tourism authority, is the first emotional touch point an investor has with the destination. And so if you want them to connect with the destination, I think that's where the tourism authority comes in. I think that we can't afford to operate in silos. We all have to be in alignment. And so what that alignment means is, us working together to ensure then that they're not only do they have an immersive experience, but they have a connection to the destination that they're considering investment.
Yeah. Well, I would tag on to what's been said, that if we're looking for these investors to marry us and have a joint bank account, it is a journey, and it's a long journey. And at the end, though, we also need something for them to invest in. We just can't invite them and say, come see beautiful Saint Lucia, beautiful St. Kitts, and walk around, take an island tour, and where's your money? So we need to package with prospectuses viable investment opportunities for these people that are unique and will survive in the region, because these people have money, they're investors, and they're going to be willing to part with it if we present it right. And they see the value, and it's been done professionally. So yes, we have to court them, we have to be in contact, and we have to have the package that they're willing to put their money into.
Yeah, I wanted to add to this conversation to say that we have to perceive the CBI beyond its current potential as a transaction. At the start of the transaction is the passport, and that's from my perspective, the minimal engagement. If we see it from the full potential of the CBI, it is way greater beyond the passport. And as a matter of fact, if it is structured in such a way that you build towards its full potential, you can build channels by which you target, various investors. So say, for instance, if there is a need in a country for development within the health sector, you can target those who might be able to partner with you in a greater way to uplift, that sector and develop some sort of strategic pursuit of who becomes a partner, who becomes a CBI, who becomes the one engaged as part of your development strategy. And I think the passport is the first level of the transaction. The engagement really starts beyond. And if you align your intent with the right sort of investor, then I think the potential beyond the passport is far greater, and at the same time, you are getting a better benefit out of it, and you might be able to entice them easier because there's an alignment between intent and ability to engage.
To that as well?
Please.
Excellent. So I don't come from the perspective of an authorized agent or the tourism authority. I work for a private firm called Control Risks. We advise on governance and integrity and perform due diligence. I guess one of the reasons I'm on this panel is just that perspective from the point of view of the difference here, and it's mentioned actually yesterday a lot on some of the panels, between citizenship and a passport. There is a clear distinction between those two things. And I think we already heard people talking about a move away potentially from marketing this opportunity as a transactional one, marketing the opportunity as just a travel document. Citizenship is about belonging, and it's actually both a right and a series of duties. You could say the same for an investor. As an investor, you have both rights, granted to you by virtue of the fact that you are providing capital and also duties. So I'm not coming with any clear, sort of tangible answers here, but considering the duties of a citizen as well. And one other thing I just wanted to bring in here is the differentiation point, Don, you alluded to it. Outside of the Caribbean and outside of the Americas, the 5, or soon to be 6, potentially Eastern Caribbean states that run programs are very much seen as one and the same. So being able there to differentiate each of the 5 or each of the 6 on its own merits and its own long-term sort of sustainable investment opportunities, I think would be key, and it's definitely the right conversation to be having when we talk about the regional regulator coming into play, that differentiation of both the rights, the opportunities, and the responsibilities there attached to those acquiring citizenship. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Very good points.
I think it's really a question of value. Everybody, an investor, be looking to see what is of value to them and how can I create value? How can I maximize this new asset that I have acquired? So you're looking to, again, take it beyond a transaction, but you have to have an experience and educate them from the very beginning, as soon as possible, as to what is the vision of your country, where it is that you are trying to move, how that aligns with them, and create that framework, that ecosystem that says to them that they can invest further in this country, whether it be through business, philanthropy, entrepreneurship. And you have to do that by curating and creating opportunities that make sense for your country and also align with what they are capable of doing. So that strong post-approval relationship management, client management, taking them through a process where they will reinvest and continue to invest in Saint Lucia in this case, or Antigua or Grenada.
I would also, add to, it's not only financial investment, it's human investment. And we have a lot of bright citizens out there that have made a lot of money in industries that if we can get them excited about certain opportunities, they can help train up our people and our managers and grow new industries, which is critical. I mean, I love citizenship by investment. Here I am. But living in St. Kitts for 18 years, we need diversification. We need to develop other industries so all our eggs are not in one basket so that we have a much more stable economy.
Thank you, Don, for that. I want to move on to the next question because we're definitely between everyone and lunch, and I'm seeing like low blood sugar and people, they're like, I'm literally going to pass out. So let's keep the energy high, but keep this tight. I just want to pose a question to the panelists and also to the audience. Who's heard of the phrase, people might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel? Have you guys heard that? And so I want to say to the panelists, what do you believe is the experience that current investors in these programs are receiving from point 1, which might be the submission of a file at their overseas agent or sub-agent, to the time that they receive the passport, or sorry, even before that, from when they try to make that first wire into the country? If anyone was listening to the past panel, we got a lot of light shed on what happens in the banking industry. And then if we're going to ask them to come into these countries and create businesses, businesses need banks, businesses need accountants, and they need advisors, and they need government authorities to interface with. It's a whole experience from point 1 all the way down to, what is this journey that we're actually taking them on, and does that justify them really wanting to go beyond the passport?
I'll take the first stab. From the get-go, I think from the tourism perspective, we have to see the CBI investor as an extension of your visitor market. As a matter of fact, what I see it's actually a segment of your diaspora, and you have to find out what exactly do they need. The same sort of segmentation that we do for a visitor, somebody who's interested in adventure or culinary experiences or romance or whatever, we have to find they match with our product. And I think that is what we have to do in terms of getting the right sort of CBI that aligns with our development strategy, but see it beyond just an arrival or just a passport, but see it for the greater potential of developing the economy. And that is where I think, the potential actually lies.
Well, I think the Citizenship by Investment program, its perception is it's very clinical and it can be difficult. You look at the degree of paper.
Close to the mic.
What's that?
Your voice is not loud.
Okay, so you look at the degree of paperwork that's required and forms and the communication and further information. It's going to be really hard to make that feel good. But like you said, if we start at the very beginning, once they get approvals and start changing from a transactional, which we don't want to be perceived in, and move more to a concierge type service, because the banking needs to get easier. The opening a business needs to get easier. The setting up your local accountants and lawyers, it all needs to get easier because it's easier elsewhere. And if we want them to come and we want them to get married to us and share the bank account, we need to compete with the world, and we just need to do a better job.
Got some round of applause on that one, Don. That you struck a chord.
I think when you talked about the role, what is our role, and as the CEO of the Grenada Tourism Authority, our role is storytelling. We shape perception, right? And so, next week we'll see us signing an MOU with IMA because we recognize our role in that journey, in that investor journey. And earlier this year, our CMO is sitting in the audience, we embarked on a sales mission with IMA, with GIDC, with a few of our other stakeholders. And some of the questions that were being asked strengthened our presence there, because the questions asked by the investor is what is the current inventory, what is currently in the pipelines, how is the destination doing, what are your source markets, what are your emerging markets, what niches are you focusing on, what is the strategy for airlift development, right? Because if you have someone that's coming from whether it's the Middle East or Asia or Africa, they want direct service. If they have to go through the US, or they're going to, let's say, hit Antigua before they get to Grenada, quite possibly, if I have not shaped the perception of the island, they'll stop at Antigua, right? So, and that's where I think, we are cementing our role in the journey, because again, we want to shape that perception. We want to show what investment opportunities are available outside of just real estate, right? You talk about philanthropy, and you talked about, community service and giving back, and, and again, that comes back to, again, the connection to the destination.
Okay. All right. I would just say one quick thing. It starts, like I said in the previous, at approval. I can't see it starting much more before that. And Don, I couldn't agree with you more. You hit it right on the nail right on the head. When you bring investors to the islands, and we in Antigua have a lot of experience with this because we have required all of them to come within their first 5 years. And when you bring these investors and they partake in certain things, they see real estate, some of them actually buy because we were part of some of these transactions, so we know some of them have fallen in love with the country. However, like Don said, we have these hurdles to overcome. And I'm not throwing shade at any particular industry or any particular, company or anything, but one of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome, and it's one of the hardest things to actually find excuses for, is how long these individuals actually take to open a bank account in order to buy a property of a country that they now belong to. And I can tell you straight up, and I have proof in my emails, it can take these clients up to 6, 7, 8, 9 months to open a bank account. And these same individuals have gone through rigorous due diligence for months within a citizenship unit. And to be quite honest with you, after you go through that process, who in here would want to actually feel like to belong in this country? Let's be honest with ourselves. Anybody going through such a process, you automatically say, you know what, I don't need this because I come from a country where a wire takes a day. Or in Ben's panel before, a minute. You know? It's seriously a very hard thing to overcome when the first hurdle you get to start to belong is to even own your own home. And we've gone through that a lot in our company. And, I mean, you could talk about the application process. Sometimes it takes long. We've become very good excuse makers for that. But you can't become an excuse maker for banking or you know, things that these people have in their home countries. And they're not accustomed to the delays and the bureaucracy that they have to deal with in our country. So if we don't get that right, let's not even move forward. It does not make sense. Full stop.
He preempted my points. I was going to say, well, our role as an investment promotion agency, it's facilitation, because these are clients that are used to a level of service that is curated for them or is bespoke. So they're coming to invest or potentially to invest with an expectation that that is what is going to be available to them in country. So you have to meet that expectation. So the ease of doing business, so all of the headaches and hindrances that somebody will be facing locally, they are going to be experiencing because they are a citizen, they are a passport holder. So you have to curate the opportunities that work. You have to engage in a facilitation process where, in our case, for example, we own sites and attractions. I believe GIDC is similar in Grenada. You have to make sure these sites and locations are ready for investment, that the infrastructure is in place. You have to go and you have to engage with the community to introduce this investor. They're going to be here, they're going to be partners. How is their business going to affect you, and vice versa? How can locals buy into that? How can they buy into that? Taking them through the process of getting their licenses, getting their approvals, having a relationship manager that's assigned to them to keep them informed of where their application is at. And that is still something that in Saint Lucia, I think the wider region has been struggling with for a number of years. There's renewed focus on it in Saint Lucia as under Dr. Hilaire, because there's a new unit that is going to be looking at the reform of doing business in Saint Lucia, the Biz Trade and Facilitation Unit. So I think that piece is critical. It's an experience, they're looking for value, and you have to manage that relationship because expectations, once they are not met, they are gone.
Which is from the due diligence perspective, but the many years that we've been doing due diligence gives us insight into who these aspirational applicants or aspirational citizens are. It's stability and predictability a lot of the time that drives applications. So not to contradict anything that's been said, but if it does take a longer period of time maybe to open a bank account, and you know there are good and bad reasons for that. Some of it may be inefficiency, some of it is because correspondent banks do have hard questions for the country. As long as the expectation management there is set out from the outset. So we're very clear on how long things will be taking, what is required of new citizens, and just to emphasize, these are citizens of a new country, right? What is required of you as a new citizen? But I think the predictability and stability point can't be understated. A lot of aspiring applicants come to programs in the Caribbean for exactly that, be that operational or security-related stability. Sometimes it's about privacy as well. And I guess I also just wanted to call out the fact that to grow an economy, you also need a middle class. And you know, you can define middle class and high net worth in various different ways. But let's be clear-eyed about this. Not every applicant is a high net worth individual. You also need a middle class with potential, with aspirations, maybe with the educational credentials that are required. Not all of them are looking for luxury concierge services. Not all of them are looking to stay in five-star hotels. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight that. I don't think that statement is detrimental to the industry. You cannot build an economy only with people who expect services. You also need to expect services back from them.
I agree with your point, but I think whether they're middle income or high net worth individual, they are still coming with an expectation, and you still have to manage that relationship from start to finish, because nobody wants to hear, okay, it takes you 3 months to get your license to purchase a property in Saint Lucia or in Grenada or in Antigua, and it takes 12 months. And you don't have a suitable answer for that. So you still have to have that relationship management. You still have to do that reform to make sure that as a citizen of the country, they are getting the best experience while being a citizen.
Let's talk about some of the models out there or other programs that we think are actually doing a good job at this. We talked about the Thai Elite program. I think we also talked about another good example, I think, because of the conflict in the Middle East, a certain number of golden visa holders in Dubai were actually flown out of the country when there was the conflict.
I think I would have mentioned the Thai Elite program while I get out of this hole of a seat. The Thai Elite program has, although not the best program by any means, the Thai Elite program created this concierge service that as soon as that, let's not even call it an investor, but as soon as that visa holder lands in their country, they are welcomed by someone from the program, and they're basically walked through getting to know Thailand, getting to know the ins and outs, real estate, everything. I think that is what we can start developing, particularly with the programs that it will be introducing these 30-day stays eventually. But it starts at the citizenship unit again, and I might have said that in the first question, and let me clear that up. When I say it starts at the citizenship unit, I think, again, the citizenship packet, all the documents should be delivered directly from the country, and with that, you can then offer a booklet on investment, a booklet about the country, the heritage, everything. Because when you offer it to a third party to deliver it, they're not going to be delivering what you want them to deliver. They're delivering an upsell, not for your country or the country that they have just become a citizen of. Okay? So, in most cases, not for every company, but, and I think that's extremely important. And Thailand has done this program where as soon as you land, they help you to get your feet wet. And we as a company in Antigua would do that, but in some instances, we don't actually see those investors when they come for the 5 days because they had that opportunity to do their oath online or their oath at another embassy before. So they go into an all-inclusive and they're locked up. They enjoy the food in there and the beaches, and that's it, and they leave. So we never got the opportunity to talk and say, hey, Antigua's a great place. Why? Because of the beaches, blah, blah, blah. The economy, you know, it's diverse, whatever, whatever. We sometimes don't get that opportunity. So that's why I think the Thai Elite program has some sort of potential with it that we can model from.
Any other comments?
I want to commend something that the IMA recently did in Grenada, which was to hire a diaspora agent. So once you have your passport, you get no communication after that. So what they're doing is now they're keeping the engagement going. So whether it's to invite you to various diaspora events, keeping you updated in terms of what's going on, you know, in the destination. And I think that is, you know, something that is very, you know, critical because essentially we want to keep you engaged so that there are opportunities then that you can identify or feel like you have, again, continuing that connection with the destination.
Yeah, from the Saint Lucia side, we have, and I said that in my first comment, that we look at the CBI as an extension of marketing within the diaspora. And we develop a program called Lucian Links. And the whole intent there is to link the diaspora with the activities on island. So you get a bit of a cultural immersion. And when you look at the person who is investing in the country, they come from a very different region and a very different custom and a very different orientation. It's also very important for us to make that connection between what makes you a Saint Lucian and is presenting some of that material, an exposure to our history, our culture, our heritage, culinary traditions, etc. And the intent is really to engage them on a continuous basis where they can see them converting to an ambassador of the country. They will be developed for sharing content-ready digital material. Some of the CBI participants are actually major, what we call influencers, and they have millions of people who follow them. So it's about giving them the sort of material about happenings in Saint Lucia that they can share with the various communities, and that's how you get the multiplicative impact of the engagement that is far beyond just the passport. Is really exploding, for want of a better word, the connectivity that we have from that sort of engagement. So it's a link that keeps going, continuously.
Wonderful, thank you. Any final comments on this question before we move to the next?
Just say one thing. I keep talking about us, delivering this, belonging package, whatever we want to call it, the citizenship. I don't know if many of you might know this, but a few months ago, one country in particular, and this was in the news, this is not me making it up, one country in particular was actually turning away CBI citizens from entering. And, this was happening because the passports were not being delivered directly from an embassy or from a consulate or from the country. So, again, that is something that we should keep in mind. There's a direction this whole thing is going. And if we can make that initial touch, a lot of what we're saying up here can all fall into place. I'm sorry to say, but without that first initiation, your tourism isn't going to go anywhere. I mean, right now, a Chinese, what influence do they have to come over here? To walk on our beaches when they have hundreds over in Asia at a fraction of the cost? So we have a lot of things that we need to work out. We should work them out very fast. And it starts as soon as approval.
Another comment that I just want to make is if we look at the direction that these programs are going for the requirement for genuine links, for more time spent in the territory, all these things. We're talking, obviously there's a mismatch that we're talking about now, which is we have the experience that they haven't been getting because it wasn't required, to now this transition towards they have to come and have an experience and have the time. So this is a new opportunity for us to really engage these people in a different way. And it all looks very similar to, if people followed the news, the passing of Malta's old program, which was a transactional-based program. That's what the European the ECJ said about it. The way that this program is now is everything is essentially merit-based. And so that journey of who is this person in their normal life as they are going to become an investor of the country, but also a contributing citizen, and that is in fact a requirement of the program for them to be eligible. So instead of how much money do they have, what visa-free access do they want, and these kinds of things which have been used to sell these programs for a very long time, it's more about what is their contribution beyond the financial part, because if they're a brilliant neurosurgeon, why can't they donate a certain number of hours to the local, to the local hospitals on a yearly basis as part of their contribution? If they're a brilliant artist, why can't they, sponsor or co-found a creative arts center, for the children or for whatever. And this is actually, that conversation happens from day one before their passport is ever approved. And I think that's a very interesting, spin to put on it, is because if we thought of the new citizens as contributors way beyond their financial capacity, and that dialogue was part of that from day one, I think the outcome that we would get would be different, because also the experience that that person would get is different, because it's very individualized to them and focus on them as an individual. So obviously there's a lot of, leaps that need to be made to get there, but interesting examples that exist out there in the world already of countries that are doing this. I don't know if anyone has any comments on what I said, or if there's any burning questions from the audience, because we have 4 minutes left before we call lunch. Pitfalls. Let's talk about pitfall. Did you want to say something, Fabian?
Yeah, I would just say on the genuine link point, none of us, I don't think, would deny that the Eastern Caribbean is climate vulnerable. I don't think the UN would deny that. I don't think the World Bank would deny that. I don't think any international government would deny that. And also none of us would deny that the CBI program facilitates debt-free finance. And so thinking about ways, and I know everyone in this room is already thinking this way, but I just wanted to state it here in this panel, thinking about ways that CBI finance can feed in the green finance agenda. And that isn't just one thing. I mean, obviously, energy self-sufficiency is key. Other things include flood defenses, ensuring that coastlines are shored up to meet what happens, the challenge of a hurricane, etc. Slow onset stuff like rising sea levels, as well as sort of fast onset events like hurricanes. I see that as a win-win, and when we talk about regional scrutiny as well, often we're talking in the negative rather than the positive. We're talking about saying that the due diligence is very robust and that, there are lots of checks and balances. The conversation also, if it turns into an affirmative conversation, which I know, again, is happening, but I want to say it on this panel, is a much stronger one. So talking about the trickle-down impact, the fact that this CBI revenue is relied upon, not just for today, tomorrow, next year, but relied upon for the long-term survival of the islands and their economies and their populations. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm sure other people on the panel have things to add on that as well.
Great points. We only have 2.5 minutes left. I really don't want to go over time, as we've fallen way far behind.
Yeah, I think it's a simple, well, my comments are simple. I think we have to see the CBI for its full potential beyond the transaction and see all of the developmental potential that exists beyond the visitation, beyond the engagement, and how we can contribute towards the economic development. Simple. If you put it all into context, I think we will respond differently.
Their new citizenship, their new passport is an asset they've acquired through an investment. So we need to treat them as persons that can reinvest, continue to look for a return, continue to look for opportunity, so that it's not just mobility, but it's also economic participation, it's philanthropy, it's being embedded, and really showing them what is the value of being a Caribbean citizen. It's not just about vacation, but there's real business, real opportunity, real hardworking people here that can make a difference in their lives and also at the same time make a difference in our country's lives.
I go back to kind of one of my opening statements, and all the talk's good, it's all right, but if we don't put a good package in front of them that they can get excited about and we get creative about doing that, they're not going to do anything. And so I think we really need leadership to come up with viable, solid business opportunities, and they need to be diverse so that these economies get stronger and they're not as reliant on any one industry. And that is, I think, the biggest challenge.
I think post-pandemic, we heard Dr. Hilaire say it yesterday, is people are looking for meaningful connection. And so this goes back to, again, the transaction, moving beyond, again, the passport. I think showing the, again, packages, the opportunities that exist within the destination that go way beyond just real estate and having it be transactional. How do you make them feel like a true citizen of the destination? And I think that's what we need to focus on. That's where the opportunity lies.
Wonderful.
I think it's about messaging, like what you've said. Everyone gave some really good points. I think it's the right message is not, you must do more. It is, you belong. Here are the meaningful ways to contribute, benefit, and become one of us. That's it. And it starts with that package immediately. That's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Any final comment?
Before, which is very much not the numbers game, but the value game and the long-term game. So yeah, thinking about ways that the investment options really contribute to a sustainable economic option for the next generation as well as this generation.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for our Beyond the Passports panelists. And over to our MC. Thank you very much. Thank you for CIS for hosting us.